But first, a question that we all have about Benghazi. Why is it that we still don't have the truth? Well, Chris Matthews and Joy Reid, who is the editor of The Griot, a liberal publication online, spoke to President Obama's interview with Bill O'Reilly and, well, the need for a conspiracy theory from the likes of those on the right, like me and probably you. Roll it.
This is my problem, Joy, with that interview and the questioning from O'Reilly. I'm not a media critic, but the information's out there that Susan Rice told the truth. It was a spontaneous attack on our facility in Benghazi. It did come as a kind of a copycat to what was happening on all the airwaves in Cairo, which was the attacks there were in response, apparently, to the video, the crazy right-wing video that came out of Los Angeles. So it was right. She got it right, Susan Rice. Why is the president not just blasting it back at the guy and saying, O'Reilly, catch it?
You know what? That's a good question as to the president's response, because I do think what Bill O'Reilly was doing was sort of reheating all of the right-wing memes, all of the obsessions that the right has. He might as well have asked him about his birth certificate while he was at it, because this was not an interview about current events. This was an interview about conspiracy theories held by many on the right, many of his viewers, and it was not about the, let's say, 100 million people that were there to watch the Super Bowl. This was about the much narrower audience, 3 or 4 million people who were going to watch back the interview on Fox News and who really wanted to see combat, who wanted to see the president put in his place, who wanted to see Bill O'Reilly do what they viscerally want to do themselves, which was scold, interrogate, and force the president back on his heels. Now, the president did continually try, when he could get a word in edgewise, to say these are questions that have been answered, but that audience doesn't want to hear that. They don't want the answer. They want the conspiracy.
Anyway.
Okay, a number of things there. Interesting how, why don't we get this out of the way? President is someone we want to, I mean, we all want our president to be successful. Success means having an agenda and policies that work and expand liberty, protect our nation, understands the constitutional role of government. We naturally want our president to be successful because then America is successful. Now, as I just described it, it would be a conservative vision for America, not a socialist vision, not a progressive vision of America, and understanding that, hey, words are real and it's true. I look in the Constitution, see it for what it is and what is written, and not try to reach in and grab things that are not there to expand an ever-growing welfare state. But I digress. I'll get to that next segment. The point here is you hear the president's defenders. They're defending the president. It's not about President Obama, but they want it to be about President Obama. They need it to be about President Obama. They need it to be about anything else but what it truly is about. They need it to be about his race or where he was born. I realize there are people who believe that he was not born in the United States. I realize that. I'm not one of them. I understand that I've talked to people I respect who certainly believe that. I don't. That said, even when people do believe that, how is that germane to the discussion on Benghazi and the behavior of President Obama? Where he was? Did he understand it was a terrorist attack? Heavy weaponry? Misleading the nation? Well, we go back to the interview of President Obama, cup number 15. Here is President Obama after he has dodged the issue of whether or not Panetta made the statement specifically, as we went over last night with Buzz Jacobs' fantastic interview, Benghazi 9/11. Here he continues to get pressed by O'Reilly about it being a terrorist attack and understanding that, and why did Susan Rice lie to the nation? Roll it.
Heavy weapons coming in.
Bill, listen, I've gone through this, and we have had multiple hearings on it. What happens is you have an attack like this taking place, and you have a mix of folks who are just troublemakers. You have folks who have an ideological agenda. You have some who are affiliated with terrorist organizations. You have some that are not. But the main thing that all of us have to take away from this is our diplomats are serving in some very dangerous places.
But
and we've got to make sure that not only have we implemented all the reforms that were recommended by the independent agency, but we also have to make sure that we understand our folks out there are in a hazardous, dangerous situation.
I think everybody understands that,
No,
Mr.
but
President.
actually, not everybody does, because what ends up happening is we end up creating a political agenda on
Absolutely,
something
and that was my next question.
Democrats and Republicans should be unified in trying to figure out how are we going to protect people.
I got to get to.
Okay, now this kind of gets me, and I know it gets you. I realize that. Because you have Bill O'Reilly trying to get to the truth, and how one does that, we went over that last night. But interestingly enough, Fox News, Catherine Herridge, did find out some things about the ex-CIA's deputy director role in the Benghazi talking points, and how they contained certain omissions and changes. Here's just part of that report. Hey, hat tip to my good friend Jim Hoff, the Gateway Pundit, for posting this today. Roll it.
The Senate report states that on September 15th, one day before Susan Rice's controversial Sunday show appearances, where she blamed a demonstration gone awry, Morell and others at the CIA received a critical email that reported the attacks were, quote, not an escalation of protests. It was from the CIA chief of station, who was on the ground in Libya.
The chief of station is the senior intelligence officer for the entire United States government. You would really have to have some incredibly overwhelming factual evidence to disregard that. 5
former intelligence officials contacted by Fox News agreed with Faddis's assessment of the chief of station's email, but declined to speak on camera, citing personal reasons.
The way the agency works, he's been running 24 hours a day to nail every fact. And now he's reaching out 4 days into this email directly to the most senior levels of his organization, saying, again, with the big red crayon as clearly as he can, there were no protests.
While the report does not explain when Morell read the email, it says that on the same day, September 15th, he edited the talking points twice, excising about half the text, including prior warnings to the State Department. The word Islamic was cut, but demonstrations stayed in.
So they cut out Islamic, kept in demonstrations, understood it was not a protest. This is why, hey, Chris Matthews, Tingles, Blondie, and Ms. Reed, I just want you to know this is why we're upset. I don't care what the president's color is. I'm not a birther. I understand why people do believe that, so I don't want to insult them for having a difference of opinion on the evidence and the delay tactics that were used, because it's a beautiful issue for you to dodge and put the focus on and try to characterize those who want the truth about Benghazi. I'll get to the IRS in a second, as a bunch of nut bars, conspiracy nut bars with tinfoil on our heads. Sorry, not going to happen, not going to do it. I just want you to understand why. The report continued. By the way, Sam Faddis writes extensively about the CIA and Intelligence Committee, and that's what his analysis given him. Here's a little more of the report last night. Roll it.
The next day, September 16th, the same day Susan Rice was on TV, Morell then asked CIA staff at Embassy Tripoli for more information. On September 18th, the CIA and FBI reviewed the closed-circuit television video from the mission facility that showed there were no protests.
Where there is an offensive video.
Days later, the president was still blaming the video.
Why didn't somebody correct the president within the system who knew better? This is why you need a joint select committee.
So Mike Morell is the man they point to, but why wasn't he corrected? Well, he already knew. That's why. And yet he did tell Steve Croft that he wasn't going to call it a terrorist attack. And yet Steve Croft pointed out on September 12th, mind you, in the Rose Garden speech, he did not call Benghazi a terrorist attack. Wow, the October 16th debate keeps coming back. Thanks, Candy Crawley, for inserting yourself. If you all are upset about the name calling with Tingles and Blondie, I'm just kidding. I have an immense amount of respect for Chris Matthews' intellect and career. He has obviously an extraordinary amount of knowledge. That's why I think I'm disappointed every time he goes off the deep end or makes these assertions about conservatives. But he's part of MSNBC, which has turned out to be the campaign and defend arm of the Obama administration. And their ratings show that, by the way. And it's to compare it to Fox is not fair in so many different ways, and compare it to a news organization is not really fair. Though you could probably find a few good folks over there who are doing their jobs. The point is this. Benghazi, we didn't get the truth. We didn't get the truth most recently from President Obama with Bill O'Reilly. We continue to ask questions. And Glenn Doherty and Sean Smith and Ty Woods and Ambassador Chris Stevens, we all deserve answers, as we have Jim Inhofe, Senator Inhofe, make the statement about Benghazi being the biggest cover-up, bigger than Pentagon Papers, etc. This is the man who called out global warming when everybody said he was a nut, and he proved right. I think he's going to be proved right here too, and that's unfortunate for all of us as Americans. Crane Durham's nothing but truth. We got a lot of mo. On the flip side, AFR Talk.